All right, welcome everybody to this week's client support webinar. My name is Bennett McDowell with traderscoach.com, and today is July 26th, 2023. All right, I assume you can hear me okay. If somebody wants to say yes, audio is great, that would be good. And I'll go ahead and just get started and go through the actual disclosures and everything before we get going, the administrational stuff. Now, if you have a question, I want you to type it in the questions box. So on the webinar console, that's how you communicate with me. There's a questions area. Go ahead and type your questions in there. And then when I finish, I'll go ahead and start addressing everybody's questions. All right, hope everybody's doing good. We're cranking July here, almost the end of July into August. You know, we'll blink and it'll be Labor Day, right? Unbelievable how fast time goes. I was out in Arizona this week. I live in San Diego. I was out in Arizona. 100 on the drive out there. It was 118 degrees going from a place called Yuma to Tucson. I mean, unbelievable how hot it was out there. 118. Unbelievable. And apparently even for them, that's a little warmer than normal. I guess they're getting a little bit of a hit. If anybody's from Arizona out there, let us know. But boy, was it hot. All right, so let me go through these administrational items. Give me 1 second. And first thing I have to go through is the risks involved in trading. Like I always say, without that risk, guess what? We have no opportunity, right? So as capitalists, we have to take the risks in order to get to the forest, so to speak, right? Or to the top of the mountain. All right, so I think we have to go through the forest first before we get to the top of the mountain. It's never easy, right? All right, so also too in trading, you know, we deal in a realm of probability, so nothing is guaranteed. We have to realize that in a probable market, we're going to be wrong sometimes. So we have to protect ourselves against the trades that don't work. And we do that with risk control. And also too, it's a good idea to not trade with all your net worth. So trade with money you can afford to risk. Also, ideally, check with your financial advisor or whoever manages your money before implementing anything that we talk about here, because we don't know your personal situation and they do. And there's a lot of factors that may make some of the things that we suggest good for you and some not suitable for you. So definitely check with them. And let's see what else. Oh, you got to know how to do risk control on each and every trade. I've got a bunch of books on that. Traders Money Management and Money Management for Traders. I've also got books on Elliott Wave, and my newest book from Wiley's, coming out from my publisher Wiley, is going to be The Art of Trading, and that's coming out later this year. All right, we're going to be using our software tools. We've got charting software tools, scanning tools, and risk control software. And basically, this is all proprietary software that I've developed over my course of trading the financial markets. And a lot of this stuff is the result of testing things and seeing what current things out there I actually liked and found helpful versus what didn't work or give me an edge. And so I took some of the things that I felt were good, improved upon those, and this is the software that we use now today. So that's why we kind of call it the ultimate trading system, because it encompasses really what gives you an edge in the markets. All right, I'm not going to go into the left brain, right brain. I did that last time. So any questions out there? Let's go ahead and open up that. I got TradeStation. I've got Ninja Trader with all the scanners running. So if you have a question, feel free to ask away. And, you know, we've got the suite of indicators at the bottom of the charts. And then, of course, we've got the actual scanners and charting software. So we've got a lot of things running, so to speak, out there. Let me just reload this a little bit. Okay, I don't see any questions coming in. We got a good group here. So that must mean everything's going pretty well. All right, let me just throw in a couple new markets here. Get rid of that. We'll produce a new one. Sometimes when a chart gets wonky for no reason, better to just delete the chart and copy one from the other one and set it up the way you want it. Just readjusting the time frame. So that's kind of what I do. Then you got to make sure. Okay, so now we're all set. All right, so fire away. What do you got for me today? Alexander, what do you got today? Brian? And the list goes on. We got a good group here today. So definitely we should get some questions. You guys take your time there. I'm going to look at a couple markets while that's coming in. And I think the first one I kind of want to look at here is Amazon, because this is part of the NASDAQ, and it's really one of the stocks in the NASDAQ that has really, really done well. It's pulling back a little bit right now, but it's not done going up. The NASDAQ has still got a lot of strength left into it. And so any pullback so far on this looks temporary in nature. So let's take a look and see why I say that. Well, the first thing I take a look at is on the weekly chart over here. I take a look and see exactly what the OWL and the PTF and the pyramids are doing on each individual chart. So if we start with the weekly chart here, let me bring up my little nose thing here. Notice here, green, green. Notice pyramid, and notice a big move up. Now I draw some fib retracements because this technically is the first significant move off its bottom, right? So this is green and this is green. What is this telling me? When this is green, what does that tell me? Because this is important on how to use the software across different time frames. So when I have green, what's that telling me? Right, we're going to get more highs, right? All right, so when does it tell me we're going to get more highs? Anybody know when? It doesn't. It just says more highs. Correct answer. Okay, so basically the PTF is a great indicator because first of all, it has a 75% accuracy rate, which is pretty good in the markets. But what it doesn't tell you is when it's going to return and take out that high, even though it's forecasting it by being green. So you could get a retracement all the way down here, and then it could turn up and go back higher and still be correct, even though before it got to the high, it sold off and then returned. Very rarely, but occasionally, you'll usually never take out whatever the beginning of the trend is. Usually this tells you the trend is not over. But again, we deal in probability, so maybe 1% of the time you'll get something that fools us. But basically, that's basically the way it works. So we're kind of in a pullback a little bit, but still more room to the upside. So I would say a brief profit taking or pause in the market. And when we drew our fibs from this retracement level to here, it came up with around 118 to 107. So that's what the weekly chart's showing us. Now let's take a look at the daily chart over here in the middle. So we've got a bullish owl. And normally, an owl stays bullish for statistically at least 4 price bars, but it can stay green a lot longer. However, the longer it stays green, the more likely a red one is due. And that's what we're kind of seeing here. So we've got highs here, and notice we have bearish divergence inside the indicator itself. Do you see that? Let me just clean that up. So even though it's not red, we have bearish divergence inside the bullish owl indicator. So that's an indication too that things are changing or could change at some point. And it's an indication that the trend is mature. So here we've had a situation where we had a pyramid trading point down here. All right, we're almost red here. So we're getting close, I would say, from just a brief pullback to more of a profit-taking, significant profit-taking pullback, which means it will go to the fib levels here. Now, with that said, all right, if we take a look at this on the 60-minute chart, you can see this pullback as something more definitive. And notice we have a red owl here. We had a red PTF that's yellow, which is neutral. And so that's indicating, okay, the trend down hasn't quite reversed yet. All right, so it's very possible that until this gets green, all right, we don't want to go long on this if we're not long already. And if we are long, you have a decision to make. Do you want to get stopped out here, or you want to put your stop below the possible corrective area to stay in the trade and wait for it to go back up, because that's what this chart is saying over here. So you always will have decisions to make on whether you want to get out when there's profit taking coming in on the current leg that gets overdone like this one, or are you looking for a longer term trade based on this chart? Whereas if we get down here, we go here. You know, whenever you look at a chart like, you know, Google or Amazon or any of these markets, or even here where they've gone up quite a bit, the thing that you got to realize is when you look at a chart, let's just like Tesla. Remember when that was like in the single digits and then took off, and everybody goes, well, if you bought, you know, $100 of this, you'd have, you know, $1 million and so forth. But the chances are, all right, most people would never be able to stay in that trend, because as soon as they double their money, their minds are starting to talk themselves out of the trade. You know, you've doubled your money. What are you doing still? You could give it, you know, what happens if the market pulls back? These are the kinds of things that your mind says to you subconsciously, which is why people have such a hard time staying with the trend. So a long-term trend, especially. So you've always got to, I think, when you take a trade, look at the 3 time frames and decide whether your intentions are it's a long-term trade, an intermediate term trade, or even just a quick short scalp based on the 60-minute chart. Because once you have that answered, then you can more definitively and effectively manage the trade based on your time horizon. Does that make sense? And you're allowed to change for the most part, but you kind of want to kind of only change if really things significantly have changed in your overall view on the time frame you've chosen, not because you just happen to make some money real quick and you're getting out emotionally. That's what you want to avoid. If you do have that and it's hard for you to control that urge, I suggest scaling out then and little increments, so you still try to keep the majority of your trade on. Okay. All right. Any questions on the scanners? You know, we've got the trade confirmer up here moving, and we've got the column here indicating how we're looking at these particular columns here, which is the OWL, PTF, and also the TLM. Now, on the trade confirmer, the purpose of the trade confirmer is you choose a time frame in which this analysis gets done. But the ideal thing about this is you do not need to have the chart open, because you can just look at the column here, the different columns. And so the idea is this column here becomes a representation of how many of these columns you want to be in the same direction. So in other words, if all 3 are green, then maybe you want this to show up as green. And this is all done through the settings window. Now, what I recommend if you're new, when you first go and load this, in fact, let's put a new one up here. Okay, so I've got this set up so it comes down here. I'm going to remove all this. All right, give me 1 second. I want to, where are my columns? There they are. Okay, so I'm going to just remove these. Let's remove the trade confirmer, OWL, PTF, TLM, Elliott wave, all this stuff. I'm even going to remove the multiple time frame analyzer. Okay, so I remove that. Now I just get basically an instrument with this. Okay, so we have templates for each scanner. Okay, I've created more, but here's the one for the trade confirmer. So if we load that in there, okay, that's going to put those 4 columns up there. Then you right click and you go to the columns, which is the settings area, and you take a look at this. So here's the column that is for the trade confirmer. Notice it's gonna only change, give you a color of green when all three of these, the OWL, PTF, and TLM are all green, or red when they're all red. If two are green and one is red, or two are green and one is yellow, it's going to show up as a yellow neutral in that column because not all the requirements were met. Now you can change that. Let's say I only want to have two. I put two up here and then I get rid of the one I want to remove. So let's say I just want to remove the TLM. Okay, done. Now it's going to, this column is going to show me every time the OWL and the PTF are the same color. All right, so that's important. And notice I have this for the daily time frames, and we have bars to load 600. So the template loads all four columns on. Now notice the OWL, okay, is there, PTF is there. So these are all there. So the loading of the template makes it really easy. Now, here's the problem. And let me remove this. Oh, actually, no. Let me go in and load that again. I want to show you what happens. So load, and this is a NinjaTrader thing that we can't really work around. So I want to show you the difference here. So if I load the trade confirmer or any of the scanners, all right, there is the default from our template we created. However, if I now go into the template and load the turbo scanner, guess what? The template from the trade confirmer disappears. So the templates, by the very nature of the way NinjaTrader works and sets things up, they override whatever's there. So if you want to create a template that has all the scanners you purchase from us, you've got to do that in a customized way. Okay, and you can do that very easily by loading one and then load the others manually. The one I always like to load the first is the trade confirmer because that has the most setup. So I try to make it as easy as possible. So if I load that there, okay, there's the default load. Now, one more thing I want to say. Let me just remove this again, sorry. Let me just remove this. Let me go into columns because I want to show you something. I'm not so sure that was clear what I said. So if I go into columns and I do not use the template, but I scroll down the laundry list of available studies, and I come to the trade confirmer, which is here, and load this, watch what happens. Only one column loads. So if I go like this, look, there's only one. So when you load these manually, you have to do it a different way. So if you don't want to use the template, or you have a template already up there that you want to use, you have to load the trade confirmer 4 times. So I've already loaded it once. And you can achieve the template, the effect of the template, but it's more work. You have to load it, see, this many times. And then let me show you what you got to do. And this goes also for any of the scanners. As soon as you have a template set up, if you load the Elliott wave scanner, well, you got to load the Elliott wave twice, one for wave 3 and one for wave 5. So let's take a look. So I've got 4 trade confirmer columns. So I click OK. You're not going to see the OWL listed here. You're not going to see the PTF. It's going to say the word trade confirmer 4 times. So what you got to do is you got to go in and adjust it. So go into columns, go to trade confirmer 1. All right, first of all, you want to make sure it's on the right time frame. So let's say we want the daily, make sure it's the daily. And then you got to change the bars to load to 600, okay, because that's the preferred. All right, and then everything else you can leave alone. Now let's go to trade confirmer 2. All right, on this one, let's just go ahead and put OWL and 1 up here and put the daily here and put the 600 bars here. Okay, and then let's go to the trade confirmer 2. Oh, and then one more thing we got to do on the OWL, you want to name, you can change the name on these. So you want to scroll down on trade confirmer 2 right here and change the name to OWL because that's what we chose up here. So now when we go to the next trade confirmer 3, notice that switched to OWL. And this time we want to look at just the PTF on this column. And this is what the template does. These have these all done. Unfortunately, though, with NinjaTrader, you can't, each template overrides the other one. But you can create a master template after you have everything loaded the way you want it and create a brand new one to load everything. I'll show you what I do with that in a minute. All right, so this again has to go to daily, and this has to go to 600, right? All right, and then we got to change the name to this one, the PTF, because we wanted to see that name on the column. All right, and then the final one is the TLM. So we want to get rid up here of all the others and just have the TLM, have this as a daily, and have this as the TLM, and have the bars back 600. Okay, so now what we've done is created the exact same thing as the template creates, but we did it manually. Any questions on that? Now, if you just have the template, if you just own the TLM, or you want to create a template with all this done already, okay, there's already one there. You don't need to do it. All right, but if you add something like, let's add now for the Elliott wave, if we loaded the Elliott wave template, which is right here, called the Elliott wave scanner, if we loaded that, it's going to override what we just did with the TLM, right? So you don't want to do that if you want to have them both running on the same scanner. So you right click, all right, and then go down to columns, right, and choose the Elliott wave scanner. And you have to load this twice because there's two columns associated with that. One's the wave 3 and one is wave 5. So then we got to go into this column. This is all set up for wave 3 up here. Let's change this to a daily. This is how you change the time frames. All right, and let's get ahead and put this 600 bars, and let's change the name from Elliott Wave Scanner to Elliott Wave 3, so we know which column is which. TradeStation, you can't do that, but we will tell you Wave 3 or Wave 5 in the text of the column. All right, let's go to the next scanner. This will be Elliott Wave 5 because our Elliott Wave identifies Wave 3 and 5. Change this to daily. Okay, 600 bars back on this. And we'll change the name to 5. All right, let's click OK. And now we've added over here the scanner columns right there. All right, now let's remove everything. Now, okay, so let's say I only own, before I remove everything, let's say I only own the trade confirmer and the Elliott Wave 3. All right, I might want to save this as a template now, right? So save as, and then I'll save it as trade confirmer and Elliott wave. Okay, so if I save that, now if I go into my templates, anything new that I have, I can, instead of going through that again, I just have to hit that and load it, and it will load exactly what I just did. You can also set that template up as a default. So you can make that, if you wanted to, a default. So the next time you load something on, all right, it will do that. So let's go get rid of that. And let's go here and notice that template loads, right? Now, let's get rid of that and go into here, or let's go into here first. Let's go ahead and save this template as the default. And now here, I'm going to get rid of this. But when I load the new one, it'll have everything on it. Okay, so that's how you can, basically choose a template. So we got to kind of get a little questions on that because it's a little bit, also too, you can trade the name of the tab here to whatever you want. Okay, so hopefully that kind of helps you kind of see how to work the scanners in NinjaTrader and the templates. Any questions on that? Okay, good, good. All right, well, I think that's it for today. I don't see any other questions coming in, so If you have any, go ahead and type them in. But I think that is good for today. I hope everybody's doing well out there. And we certainly appreciate you as clients and being here. And the purpose of the client support webinar is really a place once a week you can come, not only to learn a little bit about some of the software, how to work the software, or maybe some concepts in trading. You know, one time we talked about psychology and things like that. So we always have an interesting topic to talk about. But the main thing is for it to give you the information that you may have questions on, all right? Because a lot of people during the week may have questions, especially our new folks. So we encourage everybody to come as often as they can. All right, so we do record these, and the recordings get put into our YouTube page under the unlisted area. So you have to access those through the client support portal, which is that area where you log in called Customer Hub. And you can access the direct link in there for all our recordings. All right, so everybody have a great week. Stay cool, especially if you live in Arizona. Couldn't believe how hot it was there. But stay cool. Apparently they get that this time of year, but it kind of dissipates in a couple months. So we'll see you next week. Have a great one. Hope you're enjoying summer. Thanks for being here.